It started with restless nights and relentless itching. Noah woke up covered in red welts, and his father, Oscar, was convinced they had bed bugs. Determined to resolve the issue, Oscar researched extensively and called in a professional. However, when the expert arrived, his face turned pale at the sight of the bugs. "These are no ordinary bed bugs," he said with urgency. "You must leave your room immediately." Oscar and his wife Hilly were hesitant about evacuating, especially with their little son Noah at home, but the seriousness in the expert's voice left no room for debate. Without time to pack, the family fled the house as the expert and his team began their investigation. Noah, shaken by the abrupt events, wasn't the same after that day. But before we dive into the story, make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss out on our exciting stories. Despite his fear, Noah had been checking under his bed every morning. One day, he saw something on his bed that sent him running to his parents. Initially dismissive, Oscar and Hilly changed their minds after seeing the terror in Noah's eyes. They accompanied him upstairs and were equally shocked. Though the insects resembled bed bugs, they looked different. Noah begged his father not to touch them, and Oscar decided it was best to call in an expert. The expert arrived within 15 minutes, listening carefully as Oscar described their discovery. His reaction was concerning. He appeared alarmed and insisted on inspecting the room immediately. As he examined the bed with a flashlight, he remained silent, heightening the family's anxiety. Then, a sudden scream shattered the quiet. The expert, who had been calm and focused, now looked terrified. Oscar held Noah tightly, assuring him that everything would be okay, but the expert's unexplained behavior only added to the tension. When the expert finally emerged, he avoided eye contact, brushing off Oscar's demands for an explanation. "I need support," he muttered, stepping away to make a phone call. He repeated himself several times as if even his colleagues couldn't comprehend what he was describing. Minutes later, reinforcements arrived, a team of people in white suits who went straight to Noah's room. The sight of them dismantling furniture and carefully inspecting the bed left the family horrified. The team worked meticulously, pushing back furniture and gathering around Noah's bed. When they lifted the blankets, whispers from the men in white suits grew tense. Despite their efforts to keep the family in the dark, Oscar, Hilly, and Noah could see the sheer number of red insects infesting the bed. They looked like bed bugs, but something was off. The experts seemed disturbed, huddling together to discuss their findings. Oscar strained to overhear their conversation but couldn't make out any words. Moments later, some of the team left with samples of the insects, while others taped off Noah's room, barring anyone from entering. The unsettling secrecy gnawed at the family. Finally, the experts made an alarming decision. They called the police. Oscar was stunned. Why involve the police over bugs? His confusion turned to fear as officers arrived, joining the growing crowd of scientists in protective suits. One officer briefly spoke to Oscar and Hilly, offering vague reassurances, but their empty words only deepened the family's unease. Then, Oscar noticed an officer's wide-eyed reaction as he received news from the experts. Unable to hold back, Oscar confronted the group, demanding answers. But instead of an explanation, the police ordered him to lie down on the ground. Shocked and bewildered, Oscar complied, raising his hands and kneeling as the officers restrained him. From inside the house, Hilly and Noah watched in horror. Things escalated further when an officer pointed his gun at Noah, causing the boy to cry out. Oscar broke free and rushed toward his son, but he was immediately subdued. Meanwhile, a kind officer gently carried Noah away, separating the family into different vehicles. As they were driven away, Oscar's confusion and dread grew. His driver wasn't a police officer, but a man in a white suit who remained silent despite Oscar's repeated questions. After a 2-hour drive, they arrived at an airport where Oscar was placed in a waiting helicopter. Strapped in and unable to see his family, he shouted for answers, but no one responded. The flight ended at a remote base, a stark and sterile facility that resembled a military camp. There, Oscar was escorted into a small, cold cell and left alone, his mind racing with questions. What was happening? Where were Hilly and Noah? A man in a white suit, introducing himself as Alex, entered hours later, claiming to work for a secret team. Alex apologized, but emphasized that their actions were necessary. Oscar's frustration boiled over. He demanded answers, but Alex remained tight-lipped. "Where are my wife and son?" Oscar shouted, desperation evident in his voice. Alex hesitated before finally replying, "Your son, he's not well. We believe he's infected with something from the bugs in his bed." The words sent a chill down Oscar's spine. His thoughts raced. What kind of infection could cause such a drastic response? Alex assured him they were doing everything possible to help Noah, but the situation was delicate. Before Oscar could see his son, he needed to undergo testing to ensure he wasn't carrying the same infection. Though reluctant, Oscar agreed. The tests felt like an eternity, but the results were a relief. He was not infected. Now, his only concern was seeing Noah. Escorted down a long corridor, Alex warned Oscar not to touch his son and to wear a protective suit at all times. When they reached the room, Oscar braced himself for what he might see. Inside, Noah lay on a bed, connected to tubes and machines. He looked pale and weak, and Oscar's heart sank. Sitting by his side, Hilly reassured him that Noah had shown slight improvement, but the uncertainty loomed over them like a dark cloud. The medical team explained that Noah had been exposed to a rare and dangerous pathogen carried by the mutated bedbugs. Alex revealed that this was the third known case of its kind, and they were experimenting with treatments. One promising option involved a blood transfusion, and Oscar immediately volunteered his blood. After rigorous testing, it was confirmed that his blood type matched Noah's. Without hesitation, the transfusion began. As his blood flowed into Noah's veins, Oscar held on to hope. Hours passed, and finally Noah showed signs of improvement. He stirred, opened his eyes, and asked for his parents. Relieved, Oscar and Hilly embraced him, tears streaming down their faces. The doctors, however, cautioned that Noah needed to remain under observation and that the family's home would require thorough decontamination before they could return. The next day, as Noah's condition stabilized, Oscar sought more information about the bugs. Alex reluctantly agreed to share details, but only if Oscar signed a confidentiality agreement. Desperate for answers, Oscar agreed without hesitation. After signing the agreement, Alex began explaining the mystery surrounding the bugs. He revealed they were a newly discovered, highly mutated species of bedbugs. Unlike normal bedbugs, these insects carried a venomous toxin that could cause severe reactions, especially in children. The infection was rare, with only 2 previous cases documented globally. Alex stressed that the situation was unprecedented in this country, which explained the extreme measures taken. Oscar's thoughts raced as Alex continued. The bug's presence in his home wasn't a random occurrence. About a month earlier, a friend from Brazil had stayed overnight at their house after spending time deep in the rainforest. It was likely that the bugs, or their eggs, had hitched a ride in his friend's belongings, eventually finding their way into Noah's bed. The realization sent a shiver down Oscar's spine, but it also gave him a sense of closure about how the infestation started. Noah's condition steadily improved, and the transfusion appeared to have worked. When Oscar asked if they could finally leave the facility, Alex explained that while Noah might be cleared for release, their home remained sealed off for extensive decontamination. the team needed to ensure that none of the insects or their eggs had spread. Until then, the family would be relocated to a temporary residence. Later that day, Oscar, Hilly, and Noah were moved to a modest but clean temporary home. The doctors assured them that Noah's recovery was progressing well and that he would need only a few more days of observation. Though still shaken, the family was grateful to be together again. Oscar and Hilly took turns comforting Noah, who asked countless questions about what had happened. His parents did their best to explain without frightening him further. Meanwhile, Oscar's curiosity about the bugs and the infection deepened. He approached Alex once more, seeking additional details. Alex reluctantly shared that the mutated bugs had likely developed their venom as a defense mechanism in their natural rainforest habitat. What made them particularly dangerous was the ease with which their venom could trigger severe reactions in humans. "Are we safe now?" Oscar asked, his voice tinged with both hope and fear. Alex assured him that all precautions were being taken to prevent any further spread, but the situation was still being studied. As the days passed, Noah's health continued to improve, bringing some relief to Oscar and Hilly. The doctors informed them that Noah would soon be discharged, but their home would remain off-limits until decontamination was complete. Despite the reassurances, Oscar still felt uneasy. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Determined to learn everything, he approached Alex again. This time, Alex revealed the gravity of the situation. "The venom isn't just dangerous, it's potentially contagious," Alex admitted. The bug's bites could introduce the toxin into the bloodstream, but there was also concern about its ability to spread indirectly. While this wasn't confirmed, it explained the extreme measures taken to isolate the family and their home. Oscar pressed further. "What about the other cases? Were they resolved?" Alex hesitated but eventually explained that the first 2 cases had occurred in remote regions where containment was easier. Noah's case, however, marked the first instance in a populated area, which heightened the urgency to prevent an outbreak. "This is why we've been so cautious," Alex said, his tone serious. "We're dealing with something we still don't fully understand." As Alex shared these details, Hilly joined the conversation. She asked the question that had been weighing heavily on both their minds. Will Noah be completely okay? Alex assured them that Noah's recovery was progressing well and that the transfusion had likely neutralized the venom. However, he cautioned that Noah would need regular checkups to monitor for any lingering effects. Finally, the day came when Noah was cleared to leave the medical facility. The family was overjoyed to be reunited outside the sterile walls of the hospital. They moved into their temporary home, trying to return to some semblance of normalcy. While the trauma of the experience lingered, they were grateful for Noah's recovery and hopeful for the future. Before leaving the facility, Oscar signed another confidentiality agreement, ensuring he wouldn't disclose any details about the bugs or the infection. Though he now understood the importance of secrecy, the experience had left him with lingering questions about what the future might hold. As the family settled into their temporary home, Oscar and Hilly remained vigilant, determined to protect their family from anything that might arise. Despite the fear and uncertainty they had endured, they knew they were lucky to have made it through together.